Good evening, everyone. I hope everyone's doing well today. God almighty. Keir, the traitor Starmer, the granny harmer, the terrorist funder, and rape gang denier. Those are the words that you can associate with Keir Starmer, Keir, the traitor Starmer. The sectarianist bastard is another good one, since he has prioritised the Islamic community. Once again, Keir, the traitor Starmer, and of course his Nonce Party, the Labour Party, or maybe I was right first time, have denied 5 more inquiries into these rape gangs. And there's only one reason why they would do that, and that is they have something to hide. Though I suspect at this point, realistically speaking, I feel like if there were any skeletons in the closet, they'd already be sitting in the houses of treachery by now, because of the massive overflow of skeletons in the Nonce Party's closet. But are any of us truly surprised at this now, considering we knew what Keir the traitor Starmer was going to be like? And over the illegal immigration issue, he's saying, you're right to be angry, but I'm going to be strong on it. Well, let's face it, Keir the traitor Starmer is about as strong as diluted squash or an anorexic toad. The only thing I trust Keir the traitor Starmer to punch his way out of is accountability. Let's face it, if I had my way, Keir the traitor Starmer would already be serving time at His Majesty's finest. And considering the political persecution of Tommy Robinson, I might even put him in Belmarsh just for shits and giggles. I was not expecting that, actually. I know I mentioned someone came down here and said wanker. Now someone's coming down here saying avatar. So, yeah, that was unexpected. Anyway, Keir the traitor Starmer needs to serve time in jail for all of his fraud, all of his libelous slander towards the British people, and most importantly, the breach of the Human Rights Act in regards to Tommy Robinson. A man, a journalist, who has spent 150 days in solitary confinement. And only now people are starting to realise, well, hang on a minute, Keir the traitor Starmer offered reductions in sentences. And bear in mind, he was even giving these things to people who committed the riots in Southport. And for context, I'm talking about the actual violence, setting police stations on fire, setting bins on fire and pushing them up to migrant hotels, etc., etc. They all got reduced sentences, but Tommy Robinson didn't. Surely, as a Category D prisoner, surely he should be getting a reduced sentence. Bearing in mind, Category D prisoner in a Category B prison. And of course, by holding him for 150 days solitary confinement, they've breached the Human Rights Act. So if anybody should be in jail, it's Keir, the traitor Starmer. But we won't ever see that, because as we all know, we learned it from David the Conman Cameron himself. They're all in it together. But here's the real kicker. And I'm not just talking about the one of football. Here's the real kicker. The Nonce Party denied these inquiries into the rape gangs because they didn't want to upset the Pakistanis. Yep, that's right. They didn't want to upset the majority of the people responsible for these rape gangs. How about the fucking children? How about the children who were subjected to the most horrendous things on the back of these Pakistani Islamic rape gangs? I don't know about you, but I think those children are a teensy little bit more important than some Islamic rapist. So why are we not worried about the kids now all of a sudden? So I'll tell you one thing. If I heard that Islamic rape gangs were violating my women and children, I think I'd be prioritising dealing with them. I would want the parents and the children to get the counselling and the support they need, while the Islamic scumbags either get serious sentences if they're born and bred in the UK, or we take out the trash, metaphorically speaking, and we deport them back to their third world shitholes where their cult really belongs. And I know people are not going to like my blunt and specific choice of words. But I don't care. Because unlike other people, and you can say this with me, I'm not going to sugarcoat a motherfucking thing. I am not going to mince my words. I will say it exactly how it is, and I will do my best not to bullshit you. Because at the end of the day, I think these Pakistani Islamic rape gangs should be sent packing, quite frankly. Like I said, if they were responsible, and they are, responsible for most of the rapes and most of the rape gangs, I think the last thing I'd be worried about is the feelings of some criminal scumbags. Why should I have any sympathy for any people who want to cop a feel of our kids? Yet the Be Kind lot would say, oh, this is just Islamophobia from this fat fuck. No, it's not. Because Islamophobia, A, is a made-up word, and B, would imply an irrational fear of Islam. But of course the mainstream media won't tell you this. You know the drill, folks, because say it with me. It doesn't suit the narrative. Islamophobia has been a word that has been used to shut down debate. It is a word that Islam uses effectively as a phrase slave for gramophone minds. They don't want us talking about Islam because they know full well how crooked and corrupt they are. They know how evil they are as well. To go after the most vulnerable of our society, to want to get your rocks off to a bunch of kids. They are the scum of the earth. Nothing more. In fact, I'd go as far as saying they're subhuman. Because only degenerates like them would want to cop a feel of our kids. Only degenerates like those from the extremist teachings of Sunni Islam would want to go out of their way to take any kind of woman as a sex slave. They are the people that in their own Quran, they preach to kill the unbelievers. Yet, our government wants to sit here and say, Islam is the religion of peace. Like fuck are they? It's about as peaceful as a jihadi wedding in Baghdad. Yes, there's a whole new caliber over there. Anyway, the fact of the matter is, we shouldn't even be giving Islam the time of day if this is their standard belief. If they want to go around preaching that the unbelievers should be killed, white women should be treated as sex slaves, women are treated as second-class citizens, gays get to have a free first-class ticket off the top of a high-story building or get stoned to death, I don't want them here. I don't want Islam in this country. And I certainly don't want Sharia law in this country, quite frankly. In fact, I think a whole bunch of people will agree with me on that. Last time I checked, this is a Christian country, and I want it to remain that way, even if I am not a believer of Christianity. All it says when Labour Party, the Nonce Party, are denying these 5 inquiries into the rape gangs, is it says to me they have got some big names in that closet. They have got many high-ranking people that have got a few skeletons in their closets, and they don't dare have them exposed because it would show the Labour Party up for what they truly are, and they'd lose all their support. Just like that. They would be dead in the water. They'd be in the middle of the Pacific with no oar, no propellers, no jetpack, no nothing. They would be simply stranded out in the water. But what I think I find just as chilling as this is the secret recording that came out about Lee Anderson. That is, Lee the Mercenary Anderson, as I think I might just call him from now on. Because Lee the Mercenary Anderson, he has been caught saying that basically Reform, he said before that they would get absolutely no seats. And he said after he was offered a large amount of money from the same party that he was joining them. But on top of all this, here's the kicker. He said on a couple of occasions, and I quote, "A vote for Reform is a vote for Labour." End quote. I'll repeat that one more time, just so it sinks in. Especially to all those Reform people out there, the Reform supporters. I want you to pay very close attention to this, because this is what he said. And if you don't believe me, don't just take my word for it. I'm going to be linking it in the description below as well. So it is beyond to the inclusion of every reasonable doubt. that this is what this 20 pence wanker has said. So I hope you're listening. One more time. A vote for reform is a vote for Labour. Straight from the horse's fucking mouth. It's no wonder he's had a long face these days. Anyway, that is what Lee Anderson has said. Hello again! Very popular today. That is what he said. Not my words. Not Nigel El-Faraji's words. Lee Anderson. Straight from the horse's mouth. A mercenary. Categorically saying a vote for reform is a vote for the Labour Party. There is no way in God's earth people with even the slightest shred of a brain cell can ignore this now. This recording that's come out is going to destroy all of Reform's support. Just like that. Because now it is clear as crystal that the Reform Party are merely another arm of the UNI Party. And if you still can't see the facade of the Reform Party, then unfortunately you well and truly are a lost bloody cause. Oh, I know the feeling all too well of fervently, fanatically even, supporting Nigel Farage back in the past, or sorry, Nigel El-Faraji. I know all too well what it's like to support a man that you truly believe is going to save the country. But what happens when he turns his coat and he turns out to be a backstabber, a wanker, an Islamic sympathizer, and someone who will not deal with mass deportation? And I do accept, someone actually put in the comments on my last video, basically, I think we're going to have some of the legal migrants sent back to their own country, unfortunately. Because the cold truth is, we need to stop bringing more people into this country, and we need to start training up our own. We need to get Britain out of this sponging mentality. I mean, the sooner we get Britain out of this mentality of staying at home and not doing anything, the better. Now, of course, on the devil's advocate side of things, I understand completely why they're doing it. They're doing it simply because they're much better off doing that versus getting a job. Unless you're one of the sorts of people who've been to a decent school, or you've gone and gotten decent graduations rather than the Mickey Mouse courses that a lot of universities like to do. Unless you do that and you're actually able to get a high quality job, usually you're better off staying on benefits, as our successive governments have kind of made it very, very difficult for people to get into employment, to actually get enough money to support themselves. I guess I'm lucky on that extent, as I don't really go out too much and buy too much stuff. I'm not sitting here going out to every pub and basically spending 60, 70 quid on lagers, or watching football games at a football stadium or whatever. And that's not me slagging people off for it. I'm just saying it as a general context. Like, I'm lucky that I haven't gotten into this habit of spending shitloads of money in the past, as I suspect I would have been out on the streets already if it weren't for that. But my point is, there are many things that people love to do. You can't blame them for it, because that's just how they're built, with Legos and a little bit of DNA. Anyway, this is how they're built, and people enjoy certain things more than others, and they want to spend their money on it. You can't really blame them for that shit. But our successive governments have made it very difficult for people to be able to support that while having a job. I mean, at first I was having trouble trying to support myself because I didn't actually have a full-time job. I started out, I mentioned this before, I started out as a cleaner, and only on 10 hours a week, and I was barely getting any money from that shit. So it did feel like I was better off staying on benefits. It felt better that I stayed on that, because then I wouldn't have to be waking up at 4 o'clock in the frigging morning just so that I can get the one bus that was available to get up to clean. Yeah, I would have been much healthier for it, I suspect, as well, even if I wouldn't be walking. But we're not here to talk about my past, we're talking about this government. and Lee Anderson. So we can't wholly blame the illegal immigrants for coming over here, because obviously they're just seeking their fortune and glory. But we need to be more robust as far as our benefit system and getting people into jobs. We need to get the British people actually in this working mentality, rather than, oh, I'm just going to sit here and claim benefits for the rest of my days. Because if we don't get them in jobs, how are we supposed to have the qualified workers to be able to fill out positions like being a surgeon, being a construction worker, being, I don't know, scientist in quantum physics or something? Like, we're not going to be able to do that if half the bloody country is sitting on their asses doing nothing. And part of this is being driven by the fact that we are importing a large number of people, legal or otherwise. And unfortunately, whether people like it or not, the cold bitter truth is some of these illegals are going to have to go back. I don't want that. I'd rather the people who've worked hard for all their life and actually put into this system are able to stay here. But the cold truth is, even if we deport every single illegal that is here, criminal or not, we effectively need to deport more people to get a majority white population and make sure that we don't become a minority in the future years. Because what built this country? White men and women, predominantly, of Judeo-Christian heritage. Of course, the Be Kind lot is not going to appreciate that, but I couldn't care less about that lot. Just as Richard Tice calls us that lot. As far as the lefties, let them eat cake. But as far as Lee Anderson is concerned, as I said, he's outed the entire party for, well, on the back of that secret recording. On the back of the fact that he said that a vote for reform is a vote for Labour. You can't honestly expect people to support reform now that the cat is out of the bag. This is why I will always say, if you want real change, if we the British people want real change, UKIP is the only answer. And speaking of UKIP, I have got an update from UKIP. Basically, they had sent out my card, but I hadn't received it, but they're sending out a replacement. So I will be looking out for that, and hopefully, I'll get it. And that sun will get in everyone's eyes, no doubt. Jesus Christ. I don't think I'll be able to stand for MP for the local elections, though, since they're coming up on the 1st of May. But one can hope. Of course, I would love nothing more than for all this to be easy. But the truth is, we're in for a very tough few years in the very near future, quite frankly. Thank you. The cold, bitter truth is, there is going to have to be a lot of fighting for our country in order to save it. Unfortunately, reform have been proven to be, as said, another extension of the UNI party. They were controlled opposition. People have been saying this time and time again, and yet we were wrongly labelled. We were told, oh, you're going to split the vote. Nigel Farage is our only hope. Yeah, and now look where it's got you. The man who stabbed everyone in the back. The man who runs like a coward. The man who has mercenaries for politicians. As well as, of course, Mohammed Ziauddin Youssef. So effectively, the choice that we've got now is, if we were to go by the fanboys and fangirls of reform, is you can either split the vote and get Islam, or you can continue the facade and get Islam anyway. But that's something, of course, they or the mainstream media are not going to want to tell you. Nobody ever seems to want to admit when they're wrong. And as I said, I'm not a big fan of Christianity, but I respect the people that want to go for this. Just so long as they don't push it down people's throats, I couldn't care less what people's religion are, or religion is, rather. I know Nick Tanconi wants to get Christianity into the foundation of our country, and he has every right to do that. Here's the thing. Some people are going to be all for it, some people are going to be against it. I'm not wholly against Christianity. I'm only against the nutters that want to push it down my throat. I don't need naysayers and doomsayers saying, if you don't repent, you're going straight to hell. Well, I think a few months with my sister would do enough for that. Anyway, I don't want people proselytizing to me about I'm going to hell. I'm not really suffering from heartburn or indigestion, but I did end up getting these because at one point I did have a little bit of heartburn. But I tell you what, I'm truly finding hard to digest. All this bullshit that's going on in this country. Like, what can I do? That's not going to cure it. But anyway, I understand people wanting to support Christianity. And you know what? I do actually have some sympathy for them. I really do. I mean that. I do mean it. No, I know. Stop laughing. I do mean it. After all, we've seen a lot of Christians starting to get arrested on the streets because they preach the word of Christ. Try the words for fuck's sake. It works better. Anyway, they've been trying to preach the word. I really should be ashamed of myself. But jokes aside, I understand the plight they're feeling because they keep having their collar felt and dragged off to the nearest police station for preaching Christianity. Meanwhile, Islam gets a free pass to spout all of its violence-inciting and hatred-filled nonsense. Again, the mainstream media don't want to tell you that. But we're supposed to believe that we're not living in two-tier policing, or two-tier justice system, or two-tier governance. Unbelievable. I think the pot calling the kettle black springs to mind, along with nearly having a stroke. But the truth is, a religion is not going to fully save this country. And I think people are smart enough to understand that. And unfortunately, I do still stand by my last video of what I said about an imminent civil war coming to this country, quite frankly. And I've always said this. I do not want a civil war. I do not want to see a violent revolution. But unfortunately, I think we're going to see that before we see another general election. I don't think we can sit here and say, yeah, this country's got 4 years to wait. We've got about 6 to 12 months, if we're lucky. And then after that, I think everything is going to go down the pan. That's the way I look at it. I don't think we've got the time for it. I don't think, in good faith, this country is going to last those 4 years. I'd like it to. I'm not sitting here claiming the glass is half empty, or, well, unless I've drunk half of it, which is actually nearly the case in this case. It's more like a quarter, but hey-ho. I'm not sitting here claiming the glass is half empty. Neither am I going to say the glass is half full. Ah, that is some good shit, let me tell you. But I will say that we have to be realistic. Do you honestly think, with a volcano that is bubbling right now, do you honestly think, with tensions this high, that we're not going to have a civil war? I think a lot of people are fooling themselves. And when I was doing my talk, Swims and Strokes, Mike was mentioning to me that there are some people who are already preparing for it. There are people that are already getting ready, preparing whatever they have to ensure that when that war comes a-knocking, they're at least armed and able to defend themselves. It's not going to be pretty. And we have to be ready for that eventuality, because I don't honestly see any other way that this is going to go down, quite frankly. And maybe this country really does need that violent revolution to actually spark about the real change it needs. Sometimes a lesser evil has to be committed for the greater good of the country. It's a horrible thing to have to say or even suggest, but it's kind of like the situation of, what if a mother who wants to
have more children and bring more children into this godforsaken world ends up having a miscarriage, and if this child isn't terminated, then the mother's going to end up dead as well as the child. Logically, under those circumstances, you would want to save the mother, because at least then she can have another child. That's the context behind it. Like, if one is 100% dead and you can still save the mother, logically, you're going to want to save the mother. Whereas if there's a chance that the child can be saved, and the mother can be saved alongside it, then of course, obviously the ideal situation is you try and save both of them and have them both still be in the world. In this case, the mother is the United Kingdom, and the miscarriage is this treacherous establishment that we live in, and of course the so-called religion of peace. The miscarriage is there. It is killing the United Kingdom because we have far-left, Marxist, communist, globalist wankers in the houses of treachery, Parliament, or again, maybe I was right first time, who are prioritising enemies who are a threat to national security and prioritising protecting the Pakistani rape gangs over their own indigenous people and their own fucking kids. What choice do we have? Do we choose to allow this great evil to continue and continue letting our children basically be easy meat for a 5th century death cult religion? Or do we cut the cancer out of that patient and get rid of radical Islam and this far-left government? It's not a nice thing to have to think about. It's not a nice thing to have to say. But the cold, bitter truth is, DEI, wokery, and communists, Marxists, and globalists have been a decay for the country. They are a disease that has been eating away at the very heart of Britain. I know those are going to be strong words for some people who may not like that. But as I've said, I'm not going to sugarcoat a fucking thing. That is honestly the way to look at it. We have a cancer cell in the heart of Britain. And I know what I'd do if I was a bloody surgeon. I'd cut the cancer and take it out. I'm not even that big a fan of children. I've mentioned a few stories about some of my issues with kids. However, that does not mean I'm unsympathetic to them. And I would prioritise protecting those kids over some 5th century death cult barbarians and a treacherous establishment any day of the fucking week. The choice is down to us, folks. There is nothing that disgusts me more than having to even remotely think that a revolution is our only hope. To even think that civil war is our only option. I don't want it. I don't think it is right to want a revolution. And I certainly would not be the first to, I certainly wouldn't want, rather, to incite violence against other people. I would not want to incite an uprising. But look what happened to Syria. Look what happened to Egypt. Look what happened to Iran. Islam took over all 3 of those countries. Predominantly Islamic extremists, terrorists. The same is going to happen to Britain if we do not choose a different party. If we do not change the status quo, we cannot be surprised if we still get the status quo. We cannot sit here and bang our heads against a brick wall and expect it not to hurt. If we want to self-harm in that context, that's our decision. But I personally think we should be setting our sights and our bar a little bit higher. I think we should be looking at our country as the greatest country on the planet. Of course, every other country is going to say that, but hey-ho, that's patriotism for you. That's patriotism, nationalism, whatever you want to call it. Because at the end of the day, people have got to have a love for their country to truly respect it. And right now, we are importing a 5th century death cult, people from their third world shitholes, and we're acting like they're going to help transform our country into a better place, when all they're going to do is turn our country into a third world shithole. That's the bottom line. And the only reason Keir the traitor Starmer would want to deny these inquiries, as I said, is because there are some big fucking hands inside that pie, inside his nonce party, inside the government in general, that he probably doesn't want getting out. He has also, alongside his nonce party, made it crystal clear that they're doing it because they don't want to upset Islam. They don't want to upset the Pakistani rapists that are in this country. Because that's what predominantly the rape gang suspects are. 84% of all grooming gang cases, all rape gang cases, are committed by predominantly Pakistani Muslim men. And if they're only 6.5% or 7.5% of the British population, how many more do you think it would be if the population was higher? There's a question for you. What do you think that percentage would be if their population was like 12% or 13% or 14%? That should scare you. That should well and truly fucking scare you. It scares me, and I don't have any intention of having kids, quite frankly. At the end of the day, this is Britain, not Great Britannistan. This is our country, not the establishment's. Our taxpayer money should be exclusively for British people. Put your own people first. And only when you've truly established yourself, like if you've got like a tower or something, like if you establish yourself, you've got that massive tower going up, you built that tower, you built it brick by brick, and you put in the hard work, and you've got all that extra stuff to spare, then by all means help people out. But until such time as we're in that position, British people first. Fuck everyone else. If people come to this country, commit crimes, deport them. Simple as that. People on the terror watch list, deport them. Foreign criminals in our jails, deport them. People who come over to this country illegally, you guessed it, deport them. We have been too soft with these people for far too long. It's a bit like a scourer. We've been giving them the spongy side of life. We've been giving them the comforting stuff. Well, I say, it's time to clean up Britain. It's time to show them how robust we can truly be. Give them the scourer end. And let's see how they like it. Because the way I look at it, if we don't start getting tough, this country's done. Simple as that. Do you think our people would have put up with even a quarter of this shit 100 or 200 years ago? Like fuck they would. Or would they? Sorry. They would have taken out the trash just like that. Time for us to do the same. It is time for us to grab that bag of trash full of the treacherous politicians and throw it straight in the dustbin or in the giant bins. I don't care. But the bottom line is trash goes in the bin. And that's exactly where our government and the rape gangs deserve to be.